As a Wisconsin Master Naturalist volunteer, he has offered interpretive hikes for conservancy groups and arts organizations, including Friends of Cedar Bog, Milwaukee Audubon Society, Woodland Pattern Book Center, Friends of Lorraine Niedecker, and the Linden Sculpture Garden. He edits Partly Press for Linden Sculpture Garden and is currently a participant in Linden's residency program. And I had the pleasure of meeting Chuck back in 2005, and I'm so happy to introduce you to his work. Please welcome Chuck Stebelton.
Hi. I'm gonna share a poem by Margaret Noden, another contributor to the anthology. I'm gonna open with her work. Margaret, her poems, she writes them in her native language, Anishinaabe, as song, and then translates them into English. You can see the original language, and her books are all bilingual like this, where the poems are published face to face. And am I not, Ronnie says, can't see my face, but I believe my video is on. So I'm gonna read her poem twice. Margaret would read, would perform the Anishinaabe first, and she would, oh, it's not positioned well. Okay. I'm gonna duck down then, how's that? Okay, good. So. Margaret would perform the poem in Anishinaabe, and then she would read the English. I'm gonna read the English twice. And her contribution is Rising Sun. The sun never really rises. We only ride Earth toward that force and energy and then rotate away. We never really teach. We tell measured stories, morning to afternoon, summer to winter. We never really break. We fall back in the crashing waves to stand up once again, not seeing how we've changed. The sun never really rises. We only ride Earth toward that force and energy and then rotate away. We never really teach. We tell measured stories, morning to afternoon, summer to winter. We never really break. We fall back in the crashing waves to stand up once again, not seeing how we've changed. And my contribution is titled Sturdivant. And it's a litany. It takes the form of its first line and last line from the English landscape poet Edward Thomas. And of course, Sturdivant is a town in southeast Wisconsin. It's the train stop if you take the Amtrak from Milwaukee to Chicago between the Milwaukee airport and Glenview, Illinois. Sturdivant is also the name of an artist. She would replicate the work of other famous artists. It was sort of a conceptual power move. And there was a late retrospective of her work titled Double Trouble. This poem is called Sturdivant. And I want to mention that this poem was written for an episode of Milwaukee Kitchen. Margaret Newton also appeared on an episode of Milwaukee Kitchen. Sturdivant. Yes, I remember Sturdivant, and the cabbage whites replicate, and the green cut leaf coneflower, and pollen in the quiet car in September, and the killdeer ringing out, and the supermoon, and the slow train, and the rare lupin, and the abundant blue, and scarcity, double trouble, and compass plant, cup plant, and phlox, and Joe Pye weed, and prairie dock, mares' tails and mackerel skies, never long wet, never long dry, and the silver-spotted skipper, and the sudden clear-winged moth, and the bee balm, also bergamot, of Sturtevant and Union Grove. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. I love that Sturtevant poem. I've spent many times going through that area. Next, we have Destinny Fletcher. I'm going to read Destiny's bio here. Destinny Fletcher, also known as Deolinda Abstract, a woman with the power to inspire womanhood through the phenomenon of her voice. With Milwaukee, Wisconsin as her hometown, art becomes her sound and her greatest enigma. She self-published her recent poetry collection, Black Girl Be Storm, in May of 2016, and Fireflies and Peroxide in May of 2014. She creates confidence and continues to rock stages among many cities she touches, from Turner Hall Ballroom to the Mad Club Theatre in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She has been performing her art all over the continent and soon the world. Please welcome Destinny Fletcher.
Hello. I am going to share my piece from A Door Worth Opening. I wrote this piece specifically about being a woman in the trials and tribulations. There is a door with a light seeping through unscathed, a door never so ajar, counting the blessings in our cups, pour them out until they are half empty. Maybe there is freedom behind her tongue, a warpath beneath her toes, a grip between her nose. She is a woman with her light shining through, awaking at the grasp of no man and the words I can. Woman, be a powerhouse, a light bulb during a blizzard storm, a canvas full of ocean and song, a portrait in the sun, a woman in the doorway. She has found the fight, carrying souls of those who have fallen beside her, protecting her, hinges at the neck, bleeding in her silhouette, have carried the children of damned and unwanted, been a body for hauntings, woman, doorway to another unsung hero, but she still seems to have the sun. And that piece is from A Door Worth Opening. I wanted to share a piece by the wonderful Denise Sweet, who was the second poet laureate of Wisconsin from 2005 to 2008. Wonderful professor at UW Green Bay, who also taught creative writing as well as creating a community theater in the Navajo reservation in Arizona. This poem is called She Meant Every Word. That night, his famous smile worth nothing, his voice on endless weight upon her days, too many to count. She meant it this time. So he waits, his suitcases, setting hens at the stairwell, his loose change, hat, and keys thrown across the table the day before. She watches out the window for his cab. Don't make this difficult, and he does by reminding her of all the chances he gave her to apologize, to change, to sit, stay, and play dead. He shoves against the door, expecting he would stop and kick it down. She circles the apartment and stops to stare through the paper snowflakes on the window. She turns to release a 100-year-old shudder. He had said, "I'm not giving up," and she thought, "Neither am I." But if she could say the words aloud, and she took this more seriously, she would see his fear, his helpless tossing and turning through the night, and listen to him waste apologies and his time. She washes her face then and throws back a glass of wine, about to take her chances once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Destiny. I love that woman be a powerhouse. Do check the chats, poets. There's some nice compliments and things going on, and so wonderful to have you in this piece, Destiny, this book, and in this book. Next, we have Cristina M.R. Norcross. I hope I'm saying that right. She is the author of 8 poetry collections and the founding editor of Blue Heron Review. Her latest book is Beauty in the Broken Places from Kelsey Books in 2019. Other collections include Amnesia and Awakenings in 2016, Still Life Stories in 2016. Her work appears in numerous print anthologies and journals. She has helped organize art and poetry projects, has led workshops, and has hosted many open mic poetry readings. Cristina is the co-founder of Random Acts of Poetry and Art Day, celebrated annually on February 20th, and you can find out more at CristinaNorcross.com. Please welcome Cristina.
Okay. I'm hoping I'm appearing. Okay. I wanted to start by first saying thank you so much to, okay, I'll just ask, can everyone hear me? I'm good, okay. Thank you so much to Peggy and to Angie for creating this. Thank you to the Fort Atkinson Library and Amy for hosting this wonderful event. It's truly an honor to be here with so many wonderful voices. I will start by reading my own poem, which is called New Dimensions. When reflecting on the theme of doors and doorways, what first came to mind was the idea of an open door and a sense of welcoming. I then thought about the new world that we could create beyond that door. What could we create together as a society on the other side of that door, once we unlock that door, open the door, and see what is beyond that? Specifically, a world of acceptance and inclusion and respect. It ended up becoming sort of a technicolor dream, a lot of color in this poem. So hopefully some of the energy of what I was feeling came through in the poem as well. This is New Dimensions. This winter heart you carry longs to trace the outline of a wing. Open yourself, unfurl like petals longing to bloom. New worlds await behind that door, that beaded curtain. You are the opening to the next dimension. Color breathes here, hues of chalcedony blue and stargazer violet. Whatever your flickering heart can imagine, it lives. Let go of unwanted burdens. Wings will appear, transparent gold dust flutterings. Your heartbeat pulses to the rhythm of a new atmosphere. You are building a new world where the sky is moss green. Jasper stones vibrate beneath your feet, and all who open the door are welcome. We were asked to choose a poem by another poet in the collection. As I was reading through the same section that we all appear in each sunrise, I found Ellen Kort's final poem, which is untitled, which I won't be reading. I was immediately drawn to the energy of hopefulness and promise in that poem. So it led me to go back to the table of contents and find another poem by Ellen called Today, an Overture of Geese, which I'll be reading. I very much felt a kinship to this poem. I I felt connected to her words of hopefulness and promise and the idea of what we give back to one another. And I felt as though she had this sense of promise for what could be, what could our tomorrow be. Her longer biography is available at the end of the collection, but I did want to introduce, this is the late Ellen Kort, who was our very first Wisconsin poet laureate from 2000 until 2004. I never had the great honor and pleasure of meeting Ellen in person. She passed away in 2015. Ellen authored 11 books, as well as 8 collections of poetry. She conducted workshops for at-risk teens, physicians, nurses, and survivors of cancer, AIDS, and domestic abuse. She traveled widely and internationally as a poet and a poetry workshop facilitator. And this is her poem, Today, an Overture of Geese. Life in unmeasured waves across the water. A sailboat rides the wind out on the bay. Today, each of us breathe light and air as if it were text written willingly for one another. Our lives are spun with that kind of giving. The tree planted for someone else's comfort. Empty basket waiting to be filled. That extended hand, an offering of grace. We are givers, in love with believing. We are the horizon, the road, the traveler, map makers for others to follow. The door that opens for the word to enter. Everything we give to one another is a timepiece, a fluid motion of ours. Everything we give, a sweet echo, singing. So a big thank you to Ellen Kort for providing that inspiration. And I hope that by reading her words, I honored her presence here with us this evening. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Cristina. That was beautiful. It's so nice to hear poets read their work because they're on paper and then they come to life, and it's just lovely. Next, we have Nathan Reid, and I'll read. Nathan J. Reid's work has appeared in Fox City Review, Wisconsin People and Ideas, Poetry Hall, Ope, a pop-up anthology of Madison writers and artists, and other publications. He serves on the boards of the Council for Wisconsin Writers, the Wisconsin Poet Laureate Commission, and the Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets. He is the former senior editor for the Wisconsin Review and former guest editor for Bramble Lit magazine. His first collection of poems, Thoughts on Tonight, was published in 2017, and Persistence of Perception came out July 2020, both by Finishing Line Press. You may learn more about him at nathanjreid.com. Please welcome Nathan.
Thank you, Angie. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to dive right in because the 2 poems I have each one has quite a bit of meat on the bones. And so I'm actually going to start with another contributor's poem. This is a piece called American Happiness by Nikki Washlager. And I picked this poem to put alongside my own because I very much felt this piece was sort of instigated almost a call and response in between this piece and my piece. This being the call and then my piece being the response. And so I'll get through some of this and then we'll dive into my poem. And yeah, bear with me here because like I say, there's some meat. But this is called American Happiness, Nikki Washlager. Donna hasn't been herself lately, and her manager's having a fit. Jonah called crying this morning. George lost his wits again over something minor. Mildred says it's been years since she felt anything but guilt. Allison cuts herself because God said she's a sinner. Michael sulks on the couch, refusing to make dinner for the kids. Omar is so angry all the time. At the holiday party, Heather makes her entrance, already trashed on wine. Tina sighs like a prophet in class. Amani is sobbing about her past to therapists who don't get it, as Roland freaks out for no reason on a cashier at the theater. Veronica is so bored she may as well be dead, wedded to a man she cannot love. Stuart has an awful opinion about everything. I mean, everything. Yusef's words sting everyone around him like a bee with bad knees. Larry buries people's pets for a living. Louise left her family at the Badlands and took off for Vegas. Dan ran, he just ran and ran with nothing into the woods. Grace shook her parents off and got cozier with their goods. Eleanor's favorite social activity is calling the feds on suspicious people when her daughters aren't occupying her time. Marianne, the respectable daughter, is demanded to grow a spine. In the bow of anxious frenzy, Mackenzie cancels the seminar, goes to the bar instead. Terrence's permanent mood is brewed and everyone hates him for it, especially his teachers. Esperanza got hassled at the park for sparking a blunt, even though it's in a decriminalized marijuana state. Freckles the cat actually came back, but he was still a miserable feline. Annabelle doesn't know the first thing about leaving, the distant dream of a tree living on top of a mountain. Patricia is numb all the way down to her lungs. They stole her voice when they took her son away. Eddie, on the other hand, is hell-bent on owning everything. He sees a community of poor folks and he gets the machinery ready. Jerry, the street mime, is unable to find a way out of the box they put him in. Glenn drives everyone nuts when he sings. And did you hear about our girl Heaven? She got on an international red-eye and was never seen again. Again, that's American Happiness by Nikki Washloger. She has a couple books out there and has a third one coming out soon, I believe, called Water Baby by Copper Canyon Press. And then my own poem is called We the Firefly. And so again, this is the response to the call. So today, we are all unraveled, our lives pulled, exposing the accordion that blooms from the fragile bonds of our paper doll folds. We realize we are time travelers, lovers and killers, telepaths and dumb luck dreamers. I am my father and my unborn son. I am the woman on the bus, the child in her arms, the driver cussing to himself as his pancreas flinches against each pothole. And the universe reveals to us how we are the most unlikely of every fat truth. And the walls we climb daily are laden with false bricks that can be pushed in like a button, unlocking doors that lead to new space. But even there, we get the same feeling that we have been here before, over and over and over and over. Somewhere in a rundown apartment, there is an ancient prince. He's on his 17th life. He doesn't understand where he is, the noise in the street, or why these coliseums are dripping from his eyes. There is a sparrow resting her wings. She's the embodiment of short and sweet, and every day she's pretty sure that you and I and this whole damn world is something she dreamt up last night in her sleep. We are loopers, rabbit hole divers, matrix upon matrix. There is the illusion that we are each an individual essence, but in truth, we share one soul. And it is a firefly caught between the canvas and the paint, and it floats across this portrait of existence, filling each life as it does so, meaning someday, somehow, you will be the person sitting next to you. Some way, some life, you will see yourself from across the room. Trust me, for I have been you. I have smiled all your smiles. Your hearts pump my blood. Our pulses are the waves, humanity the moon. I have been you. You are loners and regretters. Heavily you sit, without a dream to hold your hand. I have seen you, trying to crawl back through the rooms you have already walked through, as if you could rewind, cut, copy, paste, and create anew, as if that were some kind of miracle. But tall and glowing and tall and alive, you have already walked through. I have seen you, you starlight, you midnight wanderers. Don't worry about the phone calls from family that you ignored. They have already forgiven you with hugs and pot roasts. Don't worry about the dead friends who visit your dreams again and again. They're not tormented or lost. It just means you love them so much more When the time they were given for you are then, and they are you. I have been you. Do not fester in a heap of sour love gone wrong, but rise above it, so opportunity may find you. If you have hurts at the bottom of your heart, do not go looking at them through the bottoms of your drakes. Reach down, take them in your hands, crumble them to pieces, and toss them up to the heavens that swallow everything, yet say nothing. Because this life is a moving cliff, and the day we were born was the day we let go. So unclench your fists, learn to make music with the air around your fingertips. The only moment is right here, right now, and right here, right now. You'll find every other moment. Be a moment. Be the wind that blows through the cemetery where children play. Be the relief in somebody's smile at the end of the day. Be these words, for they're no longer mine. Be soft lips for the springtime. Be boogie woogie jazz and soul. Be boogie woogie jazz and soul. When something wrong is going down, be the voice that yells no. Be the sun. Be the moon. Be a cry for a cry and a truth for a truth. Tonight, unravel with me. You are free. Me, I have been you. I have seen you without a dream to hold your hand. So hold my hand, and we, the firefly, will flow out a new path, resting now and then on the canvas, absorbing rich paint, for I have been you. And when I walk around this world and stare into your faces, I know you have been me too. Thank you very much, everyone. An honor to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. And one of the things as Madison Poet Laureate is I get to invite poets to read before city council meetings. And I asked Nate to read that poem to the city council pretty soon. I'll ask someone else, maybe somebody on this chat. I don't know. Thank you so much, Nate. So the next person I want to invite up is Beatrice Szymkowiak. And I was so lucky to go to IAIA with Beatrice and to be her colleague in all of the poetry workshops. So you are in for a treat. I'm going to read her bio now. Beatrice Szymkowiak is a French-American writer. She is the author of the chapbook Red Zone, Finishing Line Press 2018, and was the winner of the 2017 Omni-Dawn Single Poem Broadside Contest. Her poems have appeared in several poetry magazines, exploratory and experimental. Her poetry investigates the new environmental trajectory of the Anthropocene. She currently teaches English and creative writing at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where she is pursuing her PhD in creative writing. And before I invite Beatrice to come up, I want to say that she and I and some other folks will be at AWP on March 3rd on Imagination and the Anthropocene. So I think you want to tune in for that. Thanks so much and welcome, Bea.
Thank you, Angie. Hello, everyone. So first, I want to say how grateful I am to have been invited to participate in this anthology and to this reading tonight. So I wanted to start by a poem by Kimberly Blaeser, who was a poet laureate. She was laureate in 1516, I think. And I've known Kim since our MFA at the Institute of American Indian Art with Angie, and I always have appreciated the way she can see. And this poem that I'm gonna read is titled "The Way We Love Something Small," and I think during these times of pandemic, it is important to be able to appreciate those small things that surround us. The way we love something small. Pause before the mirrored gray of thinning air. Grand parole. With grace revisit days of small wanting. Glass jar on firefly nights. Moon, a ripe song over water. and something wakening. Now the angle of face lit by campfire, that laugh, ringing a bell inside us, its echo, a touch, renaming. Each soft space, each sunrise, oh simple longing, a bliss, a ceremony, without excess, its light, though tiny, still spirals. And I'm gonna follow with the poem that I have in the anthology that is titled At the Edge of the City. I am very interested in places and in environments that have been damaged or an environment that represent a threshold. So when I was invited to participate in the anthology and to think about doors, I thought about this poem. At the edge of the city, downy woodpeckers drum, mourning in our pillows. Or are they? Jackhammer, muffled calls. Or are they drilling for insects hidden in rotten house sidings? You, asleep into the nook of my arm, rest your ear. Thank you.
Thank you, Bea, for that beautiful reading. And get to know Bea's work, for sure. I highly recommend her work. Next, we have Brenda Cardenas. And I just want to pause and say, poetry doesn't happen in a vacuum, that we build each other up and we support each other. And Brenda is definitely a rock of poetry and someone who I have learned from many times over. So I'm going to read her bio now. Brenda Cardenas is the author of Boomerang out of Bilingual Press and 3 chapbooks, including From the Tongues of Brick and Stone. She also co-edited Resist Much, Obey Little, inaugural poems to the resistance and Between the Heart and the Land, Latina poets in the Midwest. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Latino Poetics, The Art of Poetry, Grabbed, Take Back the Narrative, Hope is the Thing, Wisconsinites on Hope and Resilience, Court Green, Ghost Fishing and Eco-Justice Anthology, Poetry, and many others. She served as a former Milwaukee Poet Laureate 2010 to 2012 and board member of Woodland Pattern Book Center. She teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Please welcome Brenda Cardenas.
Thank you so much, Angie. And I learn from you all the time too. So it's reciprocal, right? I always say that with my students as well. I'm learning from them as much as they might possibly learn from me. I'm really happy to be here tonight with everyone. And wow, you just are all doing such beautiful readings. I'm privileged to be here with you. And thanks to Angie and Margaret for editing this beautiful book. I'm going to start with my poem that's in the anthology. And really, I have to be honest, I got the call for the anthology and it mentioned doors, something to do with doors, right? Something. And I thought it had to be a new poem. And so I wrote this poem because they were asking me to write a poem with doors. Also, we were in the midst of the pandemic, and I was thinking about how what it meant to open our doors and walk outside, especially in those early days of the pandemic when no one was driving anywhere, and it was so quiet. And in that sense, really beautiful to not have all that traffic and noise. When we open our doors, when we open our door, we gulp the morning breeze, turn our cheeks to clear skies or the wash of rain, listen to bird song flooding, squirrel chatter congregating in the silent streets. When we open our door, neighbors wave from porches, relieved to see us still standing. We shout across yards to ask after elders and their emptying cupboards. after brothers overseas, after kids who miss hoops, tag, and double dutch. When we open our door, feet flex, grateful for each step away from walls and worn hallways. Wrists and fingers relax, thanking arms for each swing away from keyboards. Eyes feast on glassy rivers, clearing minds of screens clutter, pixelated headaches. When we open our door, we pass deer grazing in a cemetery filled with lonely stones. Somehow, 6 feet may keep the gravedigger at home. So we give a wide berth to the jogger, decide to make do with what's left in the kitchen, and turn toward the house, our clunker sitting still in its spot, not coughing a single carbon emission. As we open our door, I tell you humans should quarantine 3 months each year to reduce Earth's fever, clear her congested lungs, smoggy skies, cloudy streams, to give bees, coyotes, foxes, chickadees their 6 feet of peace times 10. When we open our door, our phones, our laptops, we dream of touching the faces on our screens, of locking eyes and kissing cheeks. We dream of real meadows, milkweed, and monarchs, carrying the spirits of our dead to gather in forests of fir trees. We dream of opening the door. That was my poem in the anthology. And then I also chose to read Max Garland's poem, Joy. Max is a former Wisconsin poet laureate. I don't remember the years, but he is a former Wisconsin poet laureate, and he has several books, each of which has been borne by winning a prize. He's just such a fabulous wordsmith. And I'm going to read the poem, and then I'll mention more about why I chose it, why I like it so much. Joy. Just to know how it felt, I stood under the red pine. It was 10 below, and the sun was not quite up, and the moon not quite down, and the air so cold you couldn't call it cold anymore, but sort of comical on the intake, and the lungs were like, "Are you serious?" The small 3-pronged tracks in the snow belonged to creatures no longer of this earth. The paw prints as well were the only traces of what we once called rabbits, when such things bounded from the shrubberies. And the light which began to climb over the rim of horizon appeared stunned, like ancestors in old photographs seem stunned. You look at them in their suspenders and bonnets, and the austerity of their faces, as if they knew even then, in the minute's wait for the shutter to close, they were goners. As if they knew the reason for the picture was time without pity. So I stood under the red pine, took a few more breaths from deep in the glacial instant of my one and only life, which hurt a little, like joy, by which I mean the edge of joy, where it sharpens itself for the work it has to do. And I love the unique take on joy in that poem. I love its awareness of how in our mortality, joy can be partly painful. It can have an edge. And there's also this kind of, or I sense a kind of eerie, futuristic sense to the poem with the creatures like the rabbits that are no longer inhabiting the earth. And so I think it's just beautiful and haunting. And so thanks to Max for writing that poem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And Max's poem is so on point with our weather this last week. Just really wonderful reading. Thank you. Next, we have Lisa Vihos. And as Lisa comes, I'm going to read her bio. But What a joy. I think I met you first at a Stoneboat reading, Lisa, where Devon was published. I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. Lisa Vihos was named the first Poet Laureate of Sheboygan in June 2020. She is a founding editor of Stoneboat Literary Journal, and since 2011 serves as a Sheboygan organizer for 100,000 poets, 100,000 Poets for Change. That's a mouthful. She offers many poetry programs for groups ranging from preschoolers and elementary students to teens and college students to older adults. Her community event, Poetic Pairings, How Poetry Speaks, sparked a similar program in Manitowoc County. She has published 4 chapbooks of her poetry and edited 2 anthologies, Van Gogh Dreams, and with Don Hogue from Everywhere a Little, from Everywhere a Little, a migration anthology, Water's Edge Press. So welcome, Lisa, and thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Angie and Peggy, for putting this wonderful book together. And it's a great honor and joy to be here with all of you and hear all your voices tonight. I'm going to start with my poem in the anthology. It was inspired by something my son told me about a dream he had. And the poem is called Doors and Mirrors. The son said he had a dream, an amalgamation of doors. Better than a crisis of mirrors, replied the mother. When you go through a door, be prepared for mirrors. Reflections are everywhere. They follow you like shadows. You can wander in the maze of the old familiar funhouse, or choose to cross a threshold to an embryonic galaxy. And when this a reading like this was done back in December, and the poet whose poem I'm going to read, Jody Vandermolen, she picked my poem to be the poem she paired with. So of course, I wanted to honor her back. And the poems really are interesting together because they both speak of mirrors. And in my poem, there was reference to the sun, my son. And in her poem is a direct communication to her daughter. And it's called I want to tell you about Jody, excuse me. Jody Vandermolen represents the Wisconsin Humanities Council on the Wisconsin Poet Laureate Commission. And she served as the poetry editor of Progressive Magazine and is the founder of At Just One Haiku, a project she launched in April of 2020 to bring the therapeutic effects of poetry to the general public during pandemic isolation. And you can find more of Jody's work on Instagram at JVWords. Okay, and here's her poem, First Mirror. Before me you stand, all tick-tock and 10, pure energy, gleam in your eye. Annoyed, you inform me I lack, you need a mirror. I freeze, then a flash. In my mind's eye, you stand before it like all of us before. Your reflection each year a door. Like a shuffling deck opening one to the next, glimpses into the momentous and mundane. Here, a prom updo, pursing purple glitter lips. There, graduation cap, bobby pin fumblings. You are a backhoe, index finger excavating popcorn hull. A lion bearing bridge of braces, spanning teeth. First pimple you pop, first gray hair you pull, you scrutinize. Oh, my girl. When you stare yourself down after a bully's bite or in the midst of lover's grief, when your vision is fogged by those who would have us carved into a mountain of same, when your anguished eyes meet themselves alone, declaring you do the thing you must, may you eject your oppressor. May you resist your heart's closing. May you wipe your lenses, wield chainsaw, cleave presumption, carve yourself anew. And when your eyes decree what you must, may you forgive me for having done the same. May you remember this peering for what it is not. No hard glass call to assessment, no cold fixed invitation to judge. Rather, yourself's most loyal companion, a gift unto you of a door. I love that. And I'm going to just really quickly read one more because from like 9 years ago, I have a poem about a door and I wanted to share it. Peggy said I could do that since my poem was kind of short. It was inspired by a door by the artist Marcel Duchamp, the French artist. And the door that he made was 2 door frames perpendicular to each other with a door in the middle that went back and forth. Okay, picture that in your mind. Duchamp's door. Duchamp made a door that hung between 2 frames, perpendicular to each other. Same door, 2 frames. When one frame is closed, the other is open. When the door drifts between, there is choice. You might have to bang your head on the door a few times to get trying to get through, or you might simply have to grab hold the handle and decide. And before I give up the stage, I just wanted to give a shout out to, it was mentioned in my bio, the anthology From Everywhere a Little, a migration anthology. Working on an anthology is a wonderful thing that I'm sure Angie and Peggy will attest to, because you pull together all these different poets' voices. And Don Hogue and I had that experience creating the anthology From Everywhere a Little. And visit her website, Water's Edge Press. She's got a lot of wonderful poetry books. Catherine Gall, Carl Elder, Sylvia Kavanaugh, Ed Werstein, a lot of our good friends. So check out Water's Edge Press and look for the anthology and all those other books. And that's it from me. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Lisa. It was wonderful to hear you read. And when you and Jody chose each other's poems, like there's a reason why your poems are close together. And I think about this as poets in conversation, your poems in conversation. So that's really lovely to hear you both read each other's work. So we are going to get close to the end here. We're going to invite Dasha Kelly Hamilton up. And then after she's done, I'm going to close us with Ellen Kort's end poem. And if there's questions, we'd be happy to take them and interact with our audience. It's been a wonderful pleasure. Amy, thank you so much for the work. And thank you to the person pulling the levers behind the scenes, which I believe is Jared. It's just really great because these things do not happen on their own. It takes a lot of work. And poets know a little bit about work because we labor on our words. It is our chosen profession, and we do it because we love it. So I'm going to welcome up our current Wisconsin Poet Laureate and the first female poet that I met when I moved to Milwaukee from Seattle. And she was the first person who ever paid me for poetry in Milwaukee. Which is really kind of funny. Dasha Kelly Hamilton is a writer, performance artist, and creative change agent, applying the creative process to facilitate dialogues around human and social wellness. She is the author of 2 novels, 3 poetry collections, and 4 spoken word albums. She has taught at colleges, conferences, classrooms, and curated fellowships for emerging leaders. An arts envoy for the U.S. Embassy, that's fancy. Dasha has facilitated community building initiatives in Botswana, Toronto, Mauritius, and Beirut. Her touring production, Makin' Cake, which I heard on NPR. That sounds awesome. Her touring production, Makin' Cake, uniquely engages communities in a forward dialogue on race, class, and equity. You might want to look that up on NPR because that is some fascinating conversation. Dasha is a former Artist of the Year and the current Poet Laureate for the city of Milwaukee, in addition to her Wisconsin Poet Laureate role. Please welcome Dasha Kelly Hamilton.
Hello, family and good people. I don't know. I just trust that everyone else's heart is near close to exploding as mine. One, when we were able to check in right before everything, we went live with the Zoom to see the squares of these familiar faces. Some have been in passing, some have been on stages together, and at every stage, some of we've been in workshops together, and across the board to be among folks who we've been able to celebrate each other's hard scribbles. Yeah, these have been hard scribbles, and my husband likes to call them stubborn prayers. So congratulations to all of us on this journey of stubborn scribbling and prayerfulness. And thank you for everybody who's taken the time to listen to these words. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful collection. And I'm incredibly grateful for Angie and Peggy to have made this happen, and everyone who came on board to make sure it got across the finish line. You're right, Peggy. The idea starts one part of your brain, and then emails happen and the world happens. So to have a team of people to make sure that it gets through every phase, it takes all of us to get this done. So I am going to start with the piece that I submitted, and it is called Doors. I leave the refrigerator door open when I cook. The tendency became a habit 10 years ago, probably while freestyling a recipe and reaching inside for another something to dice, shred, or fold. Without a sensible explanation, I could only attest to a tiny burst of giddy satisfaction. My daughter was poking around the kitchen with the fridge door open once. Right then, I realized I'd been savoring a latent rebellion. I pulled out the transcripts from my childhood and told my daughter that when she was grown with her own house, she'd be able to turn the lights on, blast the heat and the air conditioning, and leave open any door she wanted. But not this one. This one is mine. And in looking through the pieces, I chose memorizing poems by Abiyami Anamishan. And I'll tell you why once I read it, but I think it'll be apparent. Memorizing poems. Isn't that beautiful, y'all? It is no different than lighting a candle and holding it high to see better. The inner doorway of a heart. Its red knob, framed trellis, the names of ancestors penciled in yellow and purple calligraphy. Holding that lit candle, the door melts, and you find yourself in the market of an ancient city, teeming with people of all ethnicity, peddling tomatoes, onions, silks, sandals, drums, saffron, milk. You walk around for hours. Tired, you sit on a bench, then notice in an empty stall, away from the noise, a girl wearing braids, playing with her veil, the way your mother did when she was that age. So again, we have these scripts that get passed down from household to household on how you do your chores and where the dishes go and the way to fold the towels. Did anyone else have a conversation with their roommate or life partner about whether the toilet paper goes over or under? Right. We talk about the huge things that we inherit and that are handed down family to family. But this little thing about the door, it tickled me when I realized it in myself. So to read this poem, and I love the visuals of his work, and want to let you know that he is we have him on loan, Wisconsin does. So go back and share with you this poet that created that story. Abayomi is the author of 3 poetry collections and the editor of 3 anthologies. A member of the Wisconsin Poet Laureate Commission, he teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh and lives in Green Bay. So clearly in his story of imagining what it takes to reconcile, to revere that mundane everyday history, especially when we're talking about family and legacy in our heart, and remembering that we're connected to a long, 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 long transcript of instructions that get handed down and scoffed at and reworked and handed down and scoffed at and reworked. And I'm looking forward to seeing what my daughter decides to hold on to and shed and that she'll pass down. Maybe it'll be keeping doors open, I don't know. But I thought it was a wonderful connection between the two of remembering the small things that stay with us. So I have another short piece that I would like to share. I've had the word liminal just kind of bouncing around in my head for a while. A lot of it is the space that we're all in, but it felt more than just being in between here and there. I mean, it's oftentimes we're trying to speed through that in-between space. We're trying to task list ourselves between, in between the in-between, or I should speak for myself. I know I do. And one, you have the Rona. Two, you have the country at a standstill between all the betweens of factions and points of conversation. And personally, being in between a space of so much, professionally, personally, and I'm not used to being suspended this way. And it was a lot of conversation of the gift of this space, of this in between, not even actually the action of transition, which is different. I know, right? But wordsmiths, you can feel me on this one. So this is called liminal. Waking, dreaming, tasting, sated, dawn, day, narrowly between approximation and certainty. Following, leading, circling, cycling between relinquish and resentment, gasp, grasping, adjusting, settled, settling. Knots in between I'm sorry and WID. Figuring, knowing, deciding, doing. Between wanting, anticipating, having a taste, buyer's remorse. Between flash and passion, bliss, shame, release. Familiarity, comfort, turned and spun. Conditional, committed, between active and activated. Data and denial. 1 millibreath between implicit and exercise. Between sundown and end of day. Thank you.
You want to read anything else, Dasha?
Of course I do.
Yeah, you got it. I'm going to hide myself, let you go.
Okay. Gonna use my current laureate privileges, bring it on. I do. That's one of the things that's been the other adjustment. I was sharing this with the commission recently. Actually being able to write. I know it's crazy, a writer that doesn't write, a poet that doesn't poet. Yes, we can make these words up. And I found how much I've been conditioned to work it in. Right? So many of us, we work jobs, we have to do laundry. Most of us work in this craft, and to have this incredible gift of time to focus on my words, I surprisingly find it hard to focus on my words because of the habits of making sure but I have a system, I have a plan. I know. Why do I need a system to write words? Because I'm breaking habits. And sometimes it takes a prompt, oftentimes it takes a request. And I've started to, just go back through my notes of the lectures and the documentaries and random song lyrics, things I hear, and going to those as sources and just going. So I appreciate having that mix of a thing that's due and falling back again and just playing with language and seeing what happens. So this is a piece so liminal was a word, let's see what happens. This piece was a request, a part of a program about Lorraine Hansberry. And the prompt for me was to write a poem about Black women and words. You already know. So thank you, Angie. I'm so glad to have time to share this piece. It's my new favorite of the week. And God said, I knew I was a bona fide mama when I could settle a squirrely child from across the room with an eyebrow arch, piercing eye contact, and one deliberate blink. I called myself a woman when I realized the multiplicity of my thighs. I stopped rummaging around through my insides, splitting skin to certify my sweetness. With forgiveness and remembrance, my finger traces the scar meridian between wielding my currency and yielding, between grasps at eternal sunshine and surrendering dark pockets of moon. I knew my thighs and I were free radicals when I slid them wide at will. Without smudges of guilt or a coercing grip, I laid down in beds if I could afford to also make them, smoothing wrinkles, pinning corners, sometimes falling back in the unmade tussle. Last week, my husband named my right thigh Rogue and my left Reckless. In our pajamas, we laughed. He whispers kisses and redemption along the seams between my antiquity and the archetypes this world still needs me to be. I knew I was grown when I released the pinky swear links to Princess Diary dreams never intended for little brown girls. I mourned half a lifetime of half-hearted advice about queenly dreams I was supposed to borrow and never own. I unfolded myself across the ley lines of Black woman, scratched a crown into the air above my head with my index finger, arranged healing stones along my tongue, pulled out apologies rooted in my throat, retold myself to myself, relearning the parts of my story recited all wrong in the first place. They tried to resign my dimensions to margins, appendixes, parentheticals, and accents, tried to freestyle the miracle of my divinity into a 1, 2, 3 easy parlor trick. I knew I was sheer energy when I spoke the truth into resistance, fixed my mouth around freedom songs and thrive music, refused the dirty dancing franchise, shoving chocolate babies into corners, into second guessing, into subsisting, into settling for the toxic crumbs of love, into standing at the edges of legacy, waiting to be seen, into existing anywhere beneath my station. Stellar. My native tongue traces dynasty to Andromeda, to Gaia. I mother the ocean, the wind, and the sky. My words coax light through layers of shadows. I can stir demise in the shallow of my palm. I speak life into the void with the flick of a tongue's tip. I script in cursive multiverse. I knew I was a deity when I saw my breath split across a blade of grass and vibrate out a song. God said, "Let there be." And I have been manifesting ever since.
Dasha, that was fabulous, fabulous. And we're so lucky to have you in Wisconsin as our state poet laureate. And I think of all the young people you have trained to be poets, and you know, it's just blossoming. So wonderful. I'm gonna read Ellen Kort's poem, and I'm gonna say I think this is the third reading we've done from this book. And every time someone has closed with Ellen Kort's poem. So this is the last untitled poem, and I never met Ellen Kort, but my niece's future mother-in-law they performed to this poem, and she said Ellen was there, so of course she had to get a copy of the book. This is by Ellen Kort, closes the collection. And I'm going to thank everyone for your words, for your work, for your love, for your passion, for this art that we make time for. Celebrate the rhythm you find here. Breathe in whatever it is that sweeps your heart clean. Breathe in the simple, magnificent spirit of who you are. Celebrate the utmost care it takes to live keeply, to find kindness in all things. Honor the journey of where you started, where you are going, and what it is that guides you. celebrate this place of rest, this place of promise. Breathe in laughter and peace, knowing that what you do for yourself can change the world. And that concludes our programming. If the poets would like to unmute and come back, we'll see if we have questions. And Amy, you'll have to tell us if there's questions because I don't know. So I'm just so pleased. It's so lovely to hear these words come to life because it is oral, right? Poetry is meant to be heard or sung or performed. And some of us do that in different ways, but it was a really good reading. I'm so happy, so happy. And yeah, do we have questions, Amy?
I don't see any yet.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take this moment to thank each and every one of you. This was spectacular, the multitude of voices and the variety of poetry, and to think it's all here in Wisconsin. That's pretty fabulous. And I also want to shout out to Jody. Thank you for all of your work on posting all of this information, and that was
Jody.
great. I didn't know that was going to happen, so that was wonderful. Thanks, Jody. All right.
Well, does anyone want to say any final words? Peggy, this was your brainchild come to fruition.
Brainchild has grown up to be a beautiful human being. And Nathan, you probably have the line that says that. You have been me, I have been you. We are the firefly. It's been really a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. The recording of this reading will be uploaded to the Dwight Foster Public Library YouTube channel. And I will share the link on Facebook when it's ready. So for anyone who wasn't able to be with us tonight, they can enjoy this poetry reading too. Thank you all again. I appreciate your time for doing this.
Thank you.
Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see everybody.
Bye.
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 Wonderful
Bye.
evening. Bye.